Live from the CBS Broadcast Center in Los Angeles, this is CBS2 News at 5 p.m.
Evacuations and extortion, a nationwide hoax causes closures and searches. The FBI is on alert after Southern California institutions were threatened as part of bomb threats that went from New York and Washington, D.C. to Atlanta and New Orleans.
Yeah, someone emailed dozens of bomb threats to schools, businesses, and news organizations across the country. CBS 2's Amy Johnson is live in Garden Grove, where several businesses got the threat.
Well, Sharon and Jeff, like you said, those threats were found all around the Southland, not just at schools and businesses, but right here at the Christ Cathedral Church, formerly known as the Crystal Cathedral. Pictures show the 650 students evacuated from Sacred Heart School in Palm Desert to allow bomb-sniffing dogs to search their school after a bomb threat was made. No bomb was found. In Garden Grove, 3 more threats at businesses and Christ Cathedral Church, formerly the Crystal Cathedral.
They received a threat from somebody online claiming that there was a bomb inside the church. Well, they said specifically inside the business, and that they were asking for $20,000 in ransom or Bitcoin to be sent to them. If they didn't send the money, they were going to detonate the bomb, and if they called the police, they were going to detonate the bomb.
There were a couple hundred people at the iconic church when the threat was discovered around 11 this morning. It had been emailed just like dozens of others around the country. They did not evacuate the church complex, but instead called police.
We determined that these were part of the chain of emails that were sent out internationally from Canada, Florida, Chicago.
Other local cities where threats were received include LA, Riverside, Chino Hills, Redondo Beach, and Monrovia. In the Bay Area, an emailed bomb threat caused the evacuation of the Jewish Community Center in San Francisco. It was directed at a nearby bank. Threats also targeted businesses in the financial district and Fisherman's Wharf. Back east, bomb-sniffing dogs were sent to TV station WBOC in Maryland. Staff evacuated as the bomb squad checked things out. They got the all clear about 4 o'clock. The FBI in Los Angeles released a statement that says, "We are aware of the recent bomb threats made in cities around the country, and we remain in touch with our law enforcement partners to provide assistance. As always, we encourage the public to remain vigilant and to promptly report suspicious activities which could represent a threat to public safety." And while it appears that all of those threats were just a hoax or a scam to get money, we are told that the FBI is still investigating, trying to determine exactly who was behind the threats. Reporting live in Garden Grove, Amy Johnson, CBS 2 News.
Amy, thank you. Threats also created a scare at a high school in La Puente.
I'm scared for my life. Well, I also didn't want to come to school, but my grades are important to me.
Deputies on alert today after a threat was scribbled on concrete at Nogales High. It read, "Everyone who call me ugly, I'll shoot up the school." The threat mentioned December 17th and 4th period.
I'm still kind of like, I don't even know what to do yet. There's a better way to relieve this kind of anger.
And so additional sheriff's deputies are going to be on campus through Monday at least, while detectives continue to investigate. A school scare in Colorado today where threats were made against Columbine High. That's right, in 1999, remember, 2 12th graders killed 12 students and a teacher there. Well, today the threats prompted a lockdown at Columbine and more than a dozen nearby schools as well.
A former school janitor is going to jail for molesting students, and now some of those students are suing the school district. CBS 2's Dave Lopez is live in downtown LA with that story. Dave?
Well, Sharon, in my hand is the document, the lawsuit that was filed just around the corner, 35 pages long. It gives in detail exactly what these young girls went through, all of them ages 11 to 14. A man who was a janitor, a man who seemingly was a friendly guy on campus. Parents are angry, the lawyers are angry, and the school district says, we didn't know.
I sent her to school to learn not to be touched by a pervert.
She didn't want her face shown, but the man she called a pervert, 60-year-old Michael Berry, once worked as a janitor at the middle school her daughter attended, Torch Middle School. 2 days ago, he pleaded guilty to inappropriately touching and molesting at least 8 female students at that school, all on campus, all during school hours.
You would give them candies and chips and even marijuana.
And then, according to the evidence, and which Berry confessed to, he would touch them. This went on for over a year. The victims range in age from 11 to 14. at a middle school in Industry where Barry had worked for the past 16 years.
She fought him off. He tried to see how far he could get with my daughter, and she fought him off, and he knew that was as far he was going to get with her.
He said his daughter was 14 years old at the time, and she didn't report it to anyone. Why? Because most of the girls, they were told, were simply too afraid, or they didn't think anyone at the school would believe them.
The administrators are more interested in their paycheck than in protecting the children, and they're more interested in the reputation of the school districts.
Attorney Luis Carrillo, on behalf of 7 clients, all of whom were 11 and 14 at the time of the incident, has filed a lawsuit against Bassett Unified School District and Michael Berry. Unspecified damages, but he claims negligence was a major factor in why this happened. And the parents of the victims agree.
They have security guards at Torch Middle School. They don't do nothing.
The only comment from the school district, quote, Bassett Unified continues to focus on ensuring the safety and well-being of our students and community. As for the 14-year sentence, this father said it's not enough.
He gets to serve his 14 years, he gets to walk out. Our daughters, our kids, they're going to serve a life sentence because they're going to live with us for the rest of their lives.
We are told that Barry is married, has children, grandchildren, and that many of them were in the court when he pleaded guilty on Tuesday. He did not address the court, we are told by some of the parents who were there. According to the regulations of the guidelines of the sentencing, Barry must serve at least 12 years of the 14 he's been sentenced to before being paroled. Reporting live from downtown Los Angeles, Dave Lopez, CBS 2 News.
Now to breaking news. The FDA says romaine lettuce from Adams Brothers Family Farm in Santa Barbara County has been linked to that recent E. coli outbreak. 59 people in the U.S. and Canada got sick after they ate tainted romaine. The FDA says other farms are also likely going to be tied to the outbreak. For now, it says do not eat romaine that's been grown in Santa Barbara, San Benito, or Monterey counties.
Some more breaking news to tell you about. Federal prosecutors are reportedly investigating whether President Trump's inaugural committee misspent some of the money it raised. The Wall Street Journal is saying prosecutors are also looking at whether some donors gave money in exchange for access to the Trump administration, which would be a crime. The Journal says the investigation began after materials were seized during raids on the home, hotel room, and office of former Trump lawyer Michael Cohen. Well, yesterday, Cohen was sentenced to prison for paying off women during the 2016 presidential race to stay silent about alleged affairs they'd had with Trump.
Today, the president went on the attack, going after his former fixer. Dave Bryan is here, and he says that he never really told Cohen to break the law, right?
Well, you know, was this political talk? That's, in other words, did he mean he never specifically said, I want you to break the law? Or did he mean it in a larger sense, right? Yes. With politicians, you never know. We've got some breaking news also this evening, because just as President Trump was busy denying and deflecting allegations involving him, a new report out tonight says he was right there in the room when the hush money payoff plan was hatched. This evening, CNN is quoting a source as saying that Donald Trump was in the room when his attorney, Michael Cohen, and the publisher of the National Enquirer were discussing making illegal hush money payments to 2 women, a porn star and a former Playboy bunny, who claimed they had sexual relations with Trump. California Congressman Eric Swalwell, who serves on both the Judiciary and Intelligence Committees, says this could mean big trouble for President Trump.
It shows that the president was a shadowy operator, and if he acted that way with respect to these payoffs, I think we should be looking at whether he acts that way with his taxes, with his finances, and the relationships that he's entangled us in with many of our foreign adversaries.
The CNN report comes just hours after President Trump told Fox News that he did not direct Michael Cohen, his fixer, to do anything illegal.
Let me tell you, I never directed him to do anything wrong.
The president also declared that the charges that led to Cohen's 3-year prison sentence were meant to embarrass him, the president.
Because what he did was all unrelated to me, except for the 2 campaign finance charges that are not criminal and shouldn't have been on there. They put that on to embarrass me. They put those 2 charges on to embarrass me. Michael Cohen pled guilty to something that's not even a crime.
But the charges are apparently very criminal. In fact, those charges are part of the reason Cohen was sentenced to serve 3 years in prison, along with tax evasion, bank fraud, and lying to Congress. And as we mentioned earlier, as for President Trump's declaration that he never instructed Cohen or anyone else to do anything wrong or criminal, he may mean he never used those exact words. What federal prosecutors say Trump did do was direct Cohen and the publisher of the tabloid National Enquirer to pay off one of the two women involved in this case to keep her from telling her story during the 2016 presidential campaign. Back to you, Sharon.
Wow. All right, Dave, thank you. There will be much more on President Trump's attacks on Michael Cohen coming up at 6:30 on the CBS Evening News with Jeff Glor.
Now, about that Russian connection. A woman accused of being a Russian spy pled guilty to conspiracy charges today. Maria Butina admitted trying to infiltrate the National Rifle Association and relay intelligence on American politicians to a Russian government official. Butina's case is separate from special counsel Robert Mueller's Russian investigation, but Butina has agreed to cooperate with investigators.
The U.S. Senate today sent a strong message to Saudi Arabia over the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. They passed a resolution saying Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is responsible for Khashoggi's death. The resolution also recommends the U.S. withdraw its support of the kingdom's war on Yemen. Some pundits are calling this a rebuke of President Trump's support for the Crown Prince. The CIA believes ordered the Khashoggi hit.
We have breaking news out of France. The Christmas market terrorist suspect has been killed in a shootout with police. 29-year-old Cherif Chakat had been on the run for 2 days. He's accused of killing 2 people, wounding 13 others when he opened fire in a popular Christmas market Tuesday.
Taylor Swift's secret scanning of her SoCal concert crowd.
Up next, find out why that superstar singer was secretly searching the faces of her fans with the help of facial recognition software.
Well, crooks are caught on camera stealing musical instruments from a local music school where kids learn to rock.
And baby on board, a passenger makes an early arrival on an international flight, no less, coming here to California. Good thing Dad's a doctor.
Hey everybody, I'm Garth Kemp. Look at this down towards Garden Grove. Look at that gorgeous shot out there. The weather is coming up.